Okay, good morning. Just a quick live today. I just got a response back from the IAC about how they get memberships for the IAC. Um, I'll get Chris to read it out first, and we're pasting it up on screen so people can read it for themselves. But because the screen readers won't be able to read the letter, I'll get Chris to read it out for us. So, just ready whenever you are, Chris.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you for contacting the Independent Advisory Council to the National Disability Insurance Scheme. As you may know, the IAC plays an important role in the National Disability Insurance Agency. The IAC gives formal advice to the NDIA board about ways to improve the NDIS. The IAC is also part of the National Disability Insurance Act 2013 NDIS Act. The IAC membership is appointed in keeping with Section 147 of the NDIS Act. This says that members of the IAC are to be appointed by the Minister of the NDIS External. When appointing members to the IAC, the Minister must think about including people with different disabilities, from different backgrounds, with different skills and experiences, who are carers of people with disability, who have experience in rural and remote areas, who understand disability services. Please note that the Minister appoints IAC members and the Department of Social Services, DSS, manages the appointment process. The Minister must consult all states and territories about the appointment of each member of the IAC. IAC members are appointed for a period of no more than 3 years, and the members can be reappointed. Section 147, brackets 5 of the Act outlines further membership requirements the Minister must consider. As of July 1, 2022, the principal member of the IAC is to also be a board member. This is stated in Section 147, Schedule 2 of the NDIS Amendments Participant Service Guarantee and Other Measures Bill of 2022. The Minister can cancel the principal member's appointment if they are no longer a board member under Section 155, Schedule 2E of the Amendment Participant Service Guarantee and Other Measures Bill of 2022. The IAC also has 4 reference groups with over 40 members who are appointed in line with the IAC's own determination procedures. Reference group members have experience in different areas of disability and inform IAC advice. The reference groups are also to enhance the diversity of representation of the IAC, and their membership and complement is determined by due process that follows a terms of reference. And that's it.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so it clearly states there that the Minister of the NDIS appoints the membership for the IAC, and the DSS, Department of Social Services, actually carry out the application, the process, interview. Reading all that, it's not an independent advisory committee like it states. It is, if it's appointed by the minister, how is it independent? It's still appointed by the minister. I don't understand. The NDIA board is appointed by the minister. The IAC is appointed by the minister. How can that be an independent advisory committee if it's not independent? I think it should be an elected position. The IAC board should be elected by the participants of the NDIA, not appointed by the minister of the NDIA. It can't be independent if it's appointed. It's all the same network. It's not independent. It can't be independent if that's the case. Now, this is not just through Bill Shorten's term. It's through the previous government or the Liberal Party as well. And where I think the Labor Party has improved is the workforce of the NDIA has over 19% of people with disabilities in the workforce, which is fantastic. I think that's Bill Shorten's done a really good job there. And the previous NDIA board, out of the dozen that were on there, only two had anything to do. One had to do with the New South Wales Health, and the other lady worked in the disability field. The rest were like ex-bankers, miners, chemical engineers, Kmart CEO. So it wasn't really, they weren't really a representation of the NDIS participants. Where Bill Shorten's improved, he's got most of the board, NDIA board, have disabilities, even though they're high achieving, high profile people, TV presenters, and ex-ministers of Victorian government. He's done a far better job in getting more people with disabilities in there. But where I have an issue is that it's not an independent advisory committee. If it's appointed, it can't be, whether it's Bill Shorten or the previous government. It can't be independent. My view, it should be elected by the participants of the NDIA. That would be independent, and that would be a fair representation. If it's appointed, it's not a fair representation, in my opinion, and I will be writing to the minister about that. I also want to comment on the IAC. They're not approachable. I think George Teleporis has a LinkedIn account, which I've read a few times. He asks questions and he posts his own personal views and opinions, which he's, entitled to do. But how we, the participants of the NDIA, are supposed to access as so-called representatives and ask them questions, put forward our own personal recommendations and views, and as well as other people's, if you can't access them? And how can they represent us if we can't access them, ask them questions? It's not fair. I've sent 4 emails off to the board of the IAC and she hasn't responded. Then how can they be our representatives when we can't even contact them? When we can't ask questions, when we can't make inquiries, when we can't get advice and seek help? That's what a representative should be able to do. And if we can't approach them and ask them questions, then they don't represent us, they're representing the minister. Now, a lot of the IAC, and not a lot, but a few of the IAC members and board members are from Victoria, the same state as the minister. It's not a fair representation. I don't know. I want everyone to email me who agrees with me or disagrees. My email is blindadvocate007@gmail.com, all one word, lowercase. Email me, let me know what you think. And if you want me to ask a question from the IAC members and the minister, let me know and I'll do it. But I will be contacting the minister and putting forward my recommendations that the IAC be elected by the participants of the NDIA. And also, I'll be contacting different Facebook groups, emailing groups, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever social platform I can get onto. I will be asking different groups for their views and opinions on this topic. It's not accessible for the participants of the NDIA. The IAC and NDIA board are not accessible and they're supposed to be our representatives. It's not fair. It's unreasonable. Is there anyone in the chat?
No, got a couple watching, but no one in chat.
Okay. If there's anyone in chat there, just type in the comment section, ask a question or make a comment so I can take that to Bill Shorten and to the IAC to be a purely independent advisory committee. It has to be independent from the NDIA board and it has to be independent from the minister. It has to be independent. It's in its title. And it's not. It's unfair, it's unreasonable, and inaccessible. I've never been contacted by anyone from the IAC or the NDIA board. Obviously, George Telporis, he puts out a question every now and again on his LinkedIn page. But our so-called representative should be going out to the different social media and reaching out to all the participants of the NDIA and asking questions. What do you want? What do you need? How can we improve? What do you want us to ask the minister or the NDIA board? They're not doing their job. Every time they meet, they get $1,000. They get paid for this, but they're not doing their job. They are not our representatives if they're not approaching us, and if we can't approach them, then they can't represent us like they're supposed to. They're totally inaccessible. I've tried to reach out to George Telporis on his LinkedIn account. He hasn't responded. I've reached out to the IAC head. She hasn't responded. I don't know what anybody else thinks. Is there any comments or? Yeah, look, we can't keep quiet on this issue. If we don't speak up and we don't act, then nothing's going to improve. It's only going to improve by ministerial appointment. It's up to us to make the changes. We tell the government, they don't tell us. If we want representation, then we've got to force the issue onto the minister. Because our so-called representatives who are there now aren't doing it. They're not doing their job, which they're being paid for. Now, I interviewed Christopher Widdows early last year, and he said there should be an oversight committee made up of people with disabilities, and that should be elected. But that's what the IAC is. They're basically an oversight committee that makes recommendations to the minister and the NDIA board. Recommendations from who? From the IAC. They're not contacting anyone. They all head off back to their own states and go to their own state groups and talk to themselves. So they're high up in the chain, up in the ladder, but they're not asking the very people they're supposed to represent. They're not representing my interests, my needs, my requirements. They're not accessible for me to express my views and opinions. They're closed off. Now, I've got certain qualifications, and there's a couple of people on the IAC board. I've got more qualifications then. How did they get that job? Is it someone they knew? Is it part of their network down in Victoria? I don't know. Because they're not accessible. I mean, if we want things to change with the NDIS for the better, then we've got to start speaking up. And if you can't do it, then to be fair, you should be electing those people who you want to represent you, not one appointed by the minister or recommended by other board members or reference groups. It should come from the participants. If we don't speak up, things aren't going to change. The more we stay quiet, the more they get away with it. They tell us what we can and can't do, what we can and can't have, what we do and don't need, how we should and shouldn't use things. And the NDIA is going to go through a major restructuring. Through the Royal Commission. I know the minister wanted to have a national register of independent support workers, but George Teleporis put a stop to it. I was never asked any questions about it. I think the minister hit the nail on the head. All independent support workers should be registered and have qualifications, a police check, working with children's check, be able to use hoists, wheelchairs, personal care, first aid, CPR, insurances. The minister was going to bring that in, but it was stopped. Now, I know George is entitled to his own opinion, George Teleporis on the IAC, but he keeps pushing this thing about independent support workers shouldn't have to be registered and have these qualifications. Because he said it removes our right to choose who we want. And I say it doesn't remove our choice to say who we want as a support worker. But what it does ensure is that these people have the appropriate qualifications because anyone can get an ABN number and turn around and be a support worker. No. No, absolutely not. Now, there's a comment in George Teleporis's LinkedIn saying that they don't need the qualifications to cut up carrots. Well, a support worker who works for a service organisation has to do a food handling and preparation course, food storage, how to wash your hands before and after, cleaning meals, cross-contamination, and you also don't need a qualification to make a bed. Well, I disagree. What happened to the bed soiled? What do they do with the contaminated sheets, blankets? How are they cleaned properly, sterilised? Do the support worker use PPEs, personal protection equipment? It's not a simple thing to say right across the board because everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses, and we need to protect everyone by ensuring that all independent support workers have the right qualifications and or experience. You can't have someone just off the street with an ABN number be a support worker. It's dangerous. As someone who's totally blind with no light perception, I am reluctant to have anyone that doesn't know how to provide sighted guide walk me around where I live. Because not just a simple thing of holding onto someone's arm and they walk you around. They have to watch your head, they have to watch your feet, they have to watch the width when you're walking through your aisles. Trip hazard, hanging trees, escalators, travelators, lifts. I just don't allow anyone to be able to walk me around. Should they be qualified to do that? Yes, they need to know how to do it. For my safety and everyone else's safety who relies on someone for sighted guide. You can't talk for everyone, George. You need to be able to get some input, feedback. And so does the minister. This has got to stop. Really, it's got to stop. We need fair, open, equal representation from the IAC, and that should be elected by the participants of the NDIA, not ministerial appointment, not recommended by other board members and reference groups, because it's just jobs for the boys. Basically, that's what it comes down to. I'm sick of nepotism. It's in local, state, and federal politics. It's in the private workforce. I remember I got my qualifications. I looked for a job for 15 years. Got 4 interviews in 15 years. I was never offered a job and never offered a second interview because of my disabilities. But, yeah, this all leads back to a fair, open, transparent process. And this is not a fair, open, transparent process. This is ministerial appointments are recommended by other board members or reference groups. Please email me, blindadvocate007@gmail.com. Whether you agree with me or not, but I will be taking this up with the minister because it's not fair. It's not an equal representation if they're appointed by certain people. And I'll be getting into that in a couple of weeks about qualified and fair representation, because it's not. I've done and starting to look into all these things, and it's not as open and transparent as people think. I won't be saying much more on that, but I am doing my own investigations, detailed investigations. Anyway, there's no comments, no questions or anything like that, Chris. All right. I've posted that up there so people can read it for themselves. And if people who use a screen reader, just start the video off and it's right at the very start. Listen to it more than once. All right. Thank you. That's it for the day. Thanks.